Welcome to Giga Brain, brought to you by Spell Labs. This is the podcast where we speak to the smartest minds across the DeFi space, exploring the ideas, innovations, and people shaping the future of crypto.
Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Giga Brain podcasts. Today we are here with Ruslan. Ruslan is a former head of crypto operations at Revolut and now is the leader behind Extended the Perp DEX. So welcome Ruslan to the podcast. Super excited to have you here. And to kickstart things, please let us know about your journey, your past journey. How did you get into Revolut and how did you went from Revolut to Extended, and what inspired you to do all this crypto journey, and what led you to where you are today? And yeah, please, the floor is yours. And we are very excited.
Yeah, of course. And thanks a lot for inviting me, first of all, right? It's a pleasure being here. As for your question specifically, well, like I started my career at McKinsey, I spent 5 years there. And then when I was an engagement manager, I was just thinking whether I should continue my career there or try something else, right? From then I had a very close friend of mine who was working at Revolut, and he told me, hey, like, why don't you try us, right? Like, we are an amazing fintech, expanding, growing very fast with a super ambitious roadmap with a lot of potential. And I've done a bit of research and indeed thought that that would probably be one of the best possible continuations of my career, right? And then I've joined Revolut. When I just joined, basically I had an option either to lead operations in acquiring or to lead the crypto operations, right? And it was back in 2021 during the last bull run. And obviously everyone was super excited and hyped about crypto. And it was clear for me that from the business endpoint, for Revolut itself, right, crypto would be a much more significant business, at least in the short term, and hence I chose crypto, and that's how effectively I got into the space and never regretted it, right? So when I just started essentially leading the operations in the crypto department, it was a very small team, right? Like with only one product, which was buy and sell of 5 or 6 cryptocurrencies, essentially. My first objective was to define the roadmap and essentially understand what we as Revolut will do crypto. And it was quite fun because I didn't understand the space at all, right? So I didn't have any past experience, and I had to figure out what will do as a company. I had to essentially get that roadmap defended, approve the budget for hiring, hire like quality people, and effectively get it going. Super exciting times. So I spent 2 years. When I was leaving, like, crypto department was probably one of the biggest departments in terms of size, all the metrics, right? And I think we've achieved quite a lot, right? And then back in 2022, we were chatting to a lot of partners in the space, and FTX was among them. So essentially, I had a chance to witness how it was. How effectively everything happened. The FTX collapsed while talking to their team, right? And right after that happened, essentially I had an idea to build a fully-fledged self-custody exchange, right? Where we as an exchange operator wouldn't have access to the user funds while providing all the same functionality, product portfolio features, right, as the meeting centralized exchanges. And that's how effectively everything started, right? Like, back then in 2022, because the market was very different, right? The Perp DEX space was almost non-existent, right? There was DYDX and GMX, but their size, product quality, level of adoption was incomparable to what we see now, right, in the space. So it was definitely the right bet back then that the Perp DEX will grow.
Perfect. Yeah, no, 100%. Like even Revolut nowadays, they are betting a lot on crypto now. It's like it's a prominent part of the app. Like if you go on the app, you have the crypto part where you have your kind of wallet. It's not really a wallet, but it's a wallet for normies or people that are not in crypto. They can at least be onboarded there, which I think is really nice. Actually, our token at Swell is also on Revolut, so you can even trade our old token there, which is super nice. And I feel that Revolut is trying to get more and more into the crypto space, which I think that it's really good. But yeah, so you touch already a little bit on the extended part and why you created it. Can you can you put it on like why did you start really extended, and how is your vision for extended nowadays, and like why it matters as of today as a DEX in the middle of so many DEXs that are out there? Like why extended is important, and why the users need to use extended as of today?
Of course. Look, you've asked, I think, many questions in one, right? But basically, like just again reiterating on why we started it is because, like back in 2022, the opportunity honestly was quite clear, right? Like so, I had the conviction that DeFi trading and DeFi Perp specifically will grow, both in terms of absolute numbers and in terms of the market share, and that happened, right? Like I've also has a very clear understanding that all the products that existed back then, right, could have been significantly improved, right? And that a strong player, multiple strong players with better products, better liquidity, better execution, right, it definitely come and take over the space, which actually happened, right? That's on why. That's the answer on why, right? As for the extended specifically, look, basically, fundamentally, our vision hasn't really changed since the inception. Obviously, we've added additional features, we had additional ideas of the product, etc., etc. But we were always aiming to build extended around the concept of the unified margin, right? So that you will have the same margin, the shared margin across spot, perps, integrated lending market, right? And we're still building towards that vision. Now, in terms of our key features, right? Probably to answer that question, we need to make a step back and just think about the perps as the product themselves. So if you think about the perps, essentially there are only a number of dimensions on which you can innovate, right? The first one is the markets on which you can trade. The second one is the fees which you pay. The third one is how you provide liquidity. The fourth one is the collateral that you use. And the last one is the ways of trading, right? And I believe that innovation has happened across all of those dimensions, aside from the collateral that you use, right? If you think about markets, basically, obviously now there are a lot of perps, including extended support tracked by markets, right? But on the markets, I don't think it can ever be a core value proposition of the exchange, because it's super simple to effectively list any market for a perfect sign, right? Then the other innovation is like all the zero fee exchanges with lighter leading that dimension effectively, right? On the ways of trading, essentially Hyperliquid launched the builders codes, right? Which also changed the way people trade and just introduced new ways of trading perps with a variety of products built on top of various exchanges, because now Hyperliquid and us and other players have or like already launched or will be launching the builders codes, right? However, on the collateral itself, nothing has basically changed, right? Over the last 5 to 7 years, right? Most, like all of the perp DEXs, they use USDC as the collateral, right? And that's pretty much it, right? Now, the idea that we have and basically already built it and will be releasing soon is that we're going to tokenize our vault. What it essentially means is that you will be able to deposit funds into the vault, and then we'll issue vault shares. Those vault shares will be contributing to your margin and to the equity which you can trade, which you can use for trading. At the same time, those vault shares will be accruing interest, right? And then we'll have a tiered system where effectively most active users on the exchange get the highest APR on the collateral, right? The more active you are on extended, right, the bigger APR you will get on your vault shares. And we believe that this is a very important innovation and a very important product which could potentially have quite a lot of traction, because now essentially will allow active traders to earn boosted yield on their collateral, right? But for the most active guys in the platform, we're expecting to pay, I don't know, somewhere in between 20 to 25% APR, right? Which effectively will be coming from 3 main sources. right? One is all the liquidation flow that goes through the vault. The second one is market making activity of the vault itself, right? And the third one is a vault will be accruing a sizable portion of the exchange fees. We do believe that this will differentiate us significantly, right? Just because as far as we know, no one doing something similar, right? That's one. And then secondly, once we support vault shares, basically it will bring us very close to supporting cross-asset collateral, meaning that besides USDC, besides all shares, will be able to support that wrapped BTC, wrapped Bitcoin, USD, or any other asset as the collateral on the exchange, right? And that will essentially further boost the product because now within the same exchange, you will be able to do funding arms, or you will be able to keep exposure to the spot assets, right, which you are holding while still trading perps, right? And then after that, we'll add the spot market. Once we have the spot market, basically we'll have more or less fully fledged functionality, right, where we'll have unified margins between perps, spot, vault shares, and there will be an integrated lending market. By an integrated lending market, I mean that if you are using WBTC as the collateral, and if you have a negative unrealized P&L in USDC, you are effectively borrowing USDC, right, and paying interest rate to USDC depositors, which again will boost the APR of the vault shares.
Right. No, that's really interesting and complex, actually. So thank you for sharing all that. And one question that I have for you is, so we have a lot of Hyperliquid users listening to our podcast. So if you can explain like what are the big differences, for example, between Hyperliquid and extended for a user that is on Hyperliquid and maybe wants to try extended, or vice versa? Like, what will be the key differentiators between extended and Hyperliquid?
Yeah, look, first of all, I think Hyperliquid is a great product, right? And basically is leading the pack for all the Perp DEXs and has helped us and all the other players in the space a lot just by virtue of opening up the market, right? Now, in terms of the specific differences, right? So there is, I think, a number of things, right? A number of things. One is even today, for most of the users, the total cost of execution on extended will be lower than on Hyperliquid, just simply because our taker fees are lower and our maker rebates are higher, which basically results in both market makers quoting slightly tighter, right, as well as the fees for the users being lower, which essentially lowers the total cost of execution for the users. The second thing is we do believe that with the launch of the gold shares, right, we'll be offering a unique product which Hyperliquid currently doesn't offer, right, which essentially will allow users to earn boosted yield on their collateral, right? The third thing is, as far as I know, Hyperliquid at some point has thought that they are not planning to launch their own native application, right? And that we are working to build our own native app with embedded wallet creation, with native on and off ramps, right? With cards, Apple Pay, bank transfers, essentially enabling that for the users. And lastly, we're also building towards the unified margin, as I mentioned, supporting various types of collateral. I do believe that most of the Perp DEXs will get there sooner or later. But with us, once we have the vault shares, we'll be very close to also supporting other non-stablecoin assets.
Perfect. And you touch in a very interesting point there. You mentioned cards and payments. I know that a lot of people nowadays are doing cards. So are you also will be making your own card? Or just curious about that, because like nowadays everyone is using the EtherFi card, for example, and a lot of projects are doing cards. So very, very interested to know that actually.
Maybe at some point in the future, we'll issue a card allowing people to use their vault shares, right, to spend using the card, but it's not on the midterm or short-term roadmap, right? What I meant is that we'll be supporting on and off ramps via various methods, right? So Apple Pay, regular cards, or bank transfers.
Got it.
That is a more immediate priority.
Okay, perfect. So, and next question is, so you are building on Starknet, right? So why Starknet, and how does extended leverage the Starknet ecosystem? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I mean, the answer to that is super simple. So right from the get-go, we didn't really want to control the settlement layer, right? Because essentially we wanted to offer full self-custody for the users without us being able to rewrite the state of the settlement layer, right? And hence we're choosing from the existing solutions that can provide us the required throughput, right? The required speed of settlement, et cetera, right? And honestly, among all the public blockchains, I think only Starknet is capable of processing the number of the throughput that we require, right? I think we're settling somewhat close to 1 million of various events, right, per day on Starknet, and then there is simply no other solution to allow us to do it, right? At the required cost, stability, reliability, etc. Right? And then the other benefit that we have is, like, theoretically, we could have solved it in the similar way how Lighter solved it, right? Where essentially they've, like, in the nutshell, I think they've launched something similar to what the DYDX was running on, the DYDX V3 was running, right? So they have some version of their own, some version of StarkX of their own, right? The downside to that solution is that if you want to expand the product, you need to rewrite the underlying ZK stack, so all the ZK circuits, which is a heavy lift, right? Whereas the benefit that we have, given that we're settling on Starknet, is that we can be just writing our business logic using Cairo, right? Without having to rewrite or amend any of the underlying settlement logic, because Starknet is basically Starknet is able to handle generic business logic, right?
Perfect. And about your governance model, can you explain to the audience what is the governance model of Extended? And will there be a token in the future, or you will not issue a token, or how are you thinking about this specific topic?
Look, as of today, right, like, it's everything is super simple given that we don't have the token, right? Essentially, we settle on chain, there are on-chain validations of all the trading logic, but currently we run centralized matching and centralized liquidation, right? Once we have the token, and we will have the token, right, essentially we're going to decentralize the operator of the exchange, right? So that there are multiple validators who run currently centralized logic, right? And obviously the entire token economics will be built around that.
Perfect. And going on a bit more generalistic questions, if there is, for example, a user listening to this podcast for the first time and never knew about Extended, how can you explain Extended in like a sentence or two for a first time user that wants to really try out today?
Yes. I'm like, as I mentioned, it's super simple, right? Like, Extended is building unified margin across curves, its own vault, spot, and the lender market, right? So we want to have a fully fledged offering all in one space.
Perfect. And going on more like a market in general question. We have been seeing the market very volatile nowadays. Of course, you work with trading daily. So what is your opinion on the current market today? So I always ask this question to everyone that I interview. Like, are we in a bull market or a bear market? And what is your take on it? You can get as spicy as you want. What I've been actually talking specifically with guests is that, at least from my opinion, I do believe that we are still in a bull market, and this is just a correction. We are definitely outside of the classical cycle market that we usually have in the last years, because nowadays it's all about politics, right? It's all about macro. And I do see that every time Trump tweets something or Elon Musk tweets something, the market moves, right? So it's a completely different thing from the previous cycles. But I'm very curious to know your opinion, especially as a trader and someone that is building a DEX. What is your take on the current market nowadays?
Look, I think very honestly is you will never get a fair take on the market on whether we are in the bull market or in the bear market from someone who is deeply in the industry himself, right? So I can tell because we're just working daily, right? Like we cannot really independently assess what's going on and what's happening in the space. When I was at Revolut, we could easily judge whether we are in the bull or bear market because we could just see the number of weekly or active monthly users on Revolut Crypto, right? Because these are pure retail users, right? If you see a spike in weekly or monthly users, it means retail is back into the space, right? There is more money coming, etc., etc. Now, given that I don't have access to the data, I cannot really independently judge, right? Like whether we are in the bear or the bull market. At the same time, I do think that despite like the market being quite volatile and we haven't seen a lot of growth, I think in the past couple of months, I do personally think we're still like in some sort of bull market. That's one. And second, as you mentioned, I think that this thing about the cycles has changed, right? I don't think the cycles will be as extreme as they were in the past, right? Maybe I'm underestimating it, right? But that's just the feeling you have to get.
Perfect. And talking about the roadmap for extended, we are now, of course, finalizing the year of 2025, going into a new year. What is your expectation? What is your roadmap for like Q1, Q2, and going forward into 2026, 2027? Like, what are you building right now? And if you can spill the beans, you can tell us some alpha here for the audience. What is coming next for extended?
Yeah, look, it's very simple for us, right? So by the end of the year, we need to fully release the tokenization of all shares, and it will be released in stages, right? Then in Q1, Q2, right? By the end of Q2, essentially, we need to have unified margin across spot, perps, and then the vault shares, and then the great lending part. So we need to have the fully-fledged exchange offering. We also need to have a native mobile app with embedded wallet creation, native on and off ramps. So that's the objective for the first half of the year. The objective for the second half of the year is to decentralize the operator of the exchange. So it's quite simple and straightforward for us.
Yeah, very, very simple, very simple answers. I really like that. So I have also here a question, which is, how do you anticipate the growing demand for on-chain representation of real-world assets influencing extended roadmap and the need for reliable data? This is a more specific question. Curious to know your take on it.
Very honestly, right? Like, I think we're yet to see whether there is significant demand for the TradFi assets in the space, right? Logically, it should be. Like, logically, there should be demand. However, we've actually launched, I think, 10 different TradFi markets back in early 2025, right? We haven't actually seen any traction on them, right? So we've delisted the majority of TradFi assets. Now we are again relisting them just because it seems that there is TradFi meta, right? That people start caring about it, etc., etc. So we are yet to see whether there is demand for that. However, what I definitely agree with, right, is for this space to expand, we definitely need more, like, we just need ability to have access to all types of TradFi data. So for example, at some point, we're thinking to launch a rolling perp on the Fed rate, right? Because Fed rate, like as a user, like basically someone who is heavily in the space, Fed rate is one of the things which essentially defines to an extent the direction of the market. And it would be a great way to hedge your crypto exposure, right? Or to double down in the market. And we could have essentially could have done market making ourselves by virtue of hedging using essentially monthly Fed rate futures, right? However, there is no reliable source as of now in the space, right, which will allow you to get access to the futures on the Fed rates, just because CME will never give you a license, right, to access their data.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Perfect. And I have a more philosophical question here at the end is, so since you transition from, of course, a more TradFi environment to crypto, and of course now are building extended, for a listener that is a first time comer and probably wants to be a founder or probably wants to start his own company, what is your advice for someone that wants to maybe switch jobs from a TradFi job to crypto or to start their own company on crypto? What could be your advice for a young person that wants to start something new here in crypto?
Look, I would probably definitely suggest first having some experience in bigger companies, right? And bigger fintechs or exchanges or whatsoever, just to see how it's being built internally, right? In these companies. And secondly, to get access to the people, right? Because I think the biggest struggle for the founders is always to hire people, right? I mean, overall, it's the biggest struggle for any company, right? To hire. And the success of your hiring basically, to a large extent, defines the success of your company going forward. So this is definitely the hardest and the most important task. And they really need to be able to hire people who are stronger than yourself, right? And that should be the objective. If you crack hiring AP, I think you can crack the AP.
That's a very good advice. Yeah, like 100%. So I'm also been building companies in the past. I did 2 exits already, and I can definitely say that people is the most important thing. Like your company is built by people, for people, and if you have the best assets with you, the best team, you will definitely succeed. So 100% agree, and thank you for that. That's very valuable advice. And yeah, and reaching the end of our conversation, do you have anything else that you want to share with the audience? I don't know, future takes of extended about yourself. Also, please, if you can share your socials, the extended website for people to follow, to test. Let us know where the app is, web app, etc., and we will be very happy to share all this information too.
Thanks a lot. Look, I think we've covered all the important topics, so I don't really have anything to add on extended or myself, right? So your questions were very comprehensive and great, so thanks a lot for that, right? As for extended, it's super simple, right? Like we are on X, right? And our website is app.extended.exchange.
Amazing. Ruslan, thank you so much for being with us today. I think this was really, really nice. Thank you for putting things in such a simple manner. I love that. I think that's like one of the guests that put it in a very simple way, just like one sentence, everyone can understand. That is really, really nice and really practical for anyone that is listening. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for also tuning in to another episode of Giga Brain, and continue to join our conversations on DeFi, Hyperliquid, and the best, hottest takes with the best founders, the best people in the crypto industry with us. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you, Ruslan, and I'll see you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Giga Brain is brought to you by Swell Labs. To find out more about Swell, go to swellnetwork.io and make sure to search for Giga Brain in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit the follow button so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening.